Hello, this is Amber with the A team at eXp Realty, and today we are going to go over 11 tips on how to successfully negotiate repairs after a home inspection takes place. Step number one, as you could potentially imagine, is setting the expectations up front during your buyer consultation or your listing presentation so the clients truly know what this part of the process looks like, what they can expect from this part of the process, and how do we handle things that come up that are challenges during this part of the process. And setting these expectations is essentially a time to have your client almost walk through them as if they were already happening. So when they do happen, it's not nearly as dramatic, but you as an agent kind of already know what to do and prepare for when it does happen. So you can truly help your client at the highest level to be an advocate for them, but also help them get towards their goals with lack of emotion and more logic. So setting that expectation at the buyer consultation and the listing presentation is key. What we do to set those expectations is step number two. Step number two is painting the picture for what this part of the process looks like and letting your clients know everything that's going to be part of the due diligence process, including the home inspection. Let them know what do inspectors look for and why. Why do they look for those things? So for your seller can go ahead and maybe be proactive, and if there are any things that maybe they know need attention, you actually attend to them before the home inspection. That way it potentially does not, become a deal breaker. On the buying side, you really let your clients know that you're an advocate for them and that you're going to be working with these amazing vendors that you've worked with time and time again to truly represent them in their best interest, to have a thorough home inspection completed so that they have the opportunity to ask the seller to either complete the repairs and or offer a credit for those repairs. So setting the expectations now and clearly letting them know what the process actually looks like and what to expect are definitely going to pave the foundation for very smooth transactions. Step number three is discussing with your buyers and sellers what are the common things that come up during home inspections. So when they do come up, they don't think, woe is me, and I have to be buying the only home that has ever had any fungi or mold growth, and it's a $50,000 repair. I think setting these expectations up front and telling your clients what is common in this area definitely softens the burden of bad news when the bad news comes after the home inspection. So letting people know these are the common things that come up in home inspections, and we actually have those items listed out in our buyer and listing presentation. That way our clients not only hear it from us, they see it in our consultation too, which is time number two that they've seen or heard it. And hopefully they understand when they see it time number three that these things are common and that we are agents that have worked through these things before and that will also find a resolution to work through it again. And I will even discuss in my consultations of how do we handle something that comes up that is very expensive but happens quite often, which is fungi, mold, and moisture growth in crawl spaces. We have that specifically spelled out in our consultations that about 80 to 85% of homes have fungi or mold growth or high moisture readings in the crawl space here in North Carolina. I tell my sellers that up front so that they're not surprised if they haven't been underneath their crawl space in years, that would be something that would come back. And then I also talk to them about what is the cost of remediating it and what control do you have doing it prior to going on the market versus what happens when our buyer finds it. So that's the approach I take on the selling side. On the buying side, I let clients know so they don't think that this is the worst possible house they could ever purchase because it has fungi and mold growth, which are scary, scary, scary words that scare people. I also don't want them to hear those words for the first time from a home inspector that they just met. So I tell them these scary things that could come up during the home inspection and things that typically do come up during the home inspection at the point in time of the consultation. Again, that way so they're familiar with it and it's not as scary when it actually does happen. Step number four is attending the home inspections and also making sure your buyers attend the home inspections. I always think a great rule of thumb is by the time you leave that home inspection, you have a preliminary repair request verbally or even written down in your notebook with your buyer. And this is going to segue into number 4 and number 5 here in a minute. completing the home inspection and being present for the home inspection and having that preliminary list already completed, I typically would tell my buyers, look, this is what the home inspector found. This is what I think we should ask for. Once we get the report, we will finalize everything. And within 24 or 48 hours, we're gonna have this seller a request. And then anything that's a concern for us that we wanna get quotes on, we're gonna go ahead and start working on getting our quotes. The minute I leave that home inspection, the first call I'm gonna make is that listing agent. I'm gonna tell that listing agent, hey, these are some things that came up on the home inspection. I've discussed them with our buyer. These are the things I think we're gonna ask for. We are gonna do a final look of the home inspection and get you a final repair request within 24 or 48 hours. Communication is everything on these little integral parts. If you're new into real estate, and I remember back in the day, I would be so excited. But I'm here to tell you, we're entering into a market. You can't get excited until the deal closes and you have that commission check in your bank account. It becomes so important to communicate at such a high level right now to keep everybody's emotions at bay. And more so now than ever, our job as real estate agents are to keep people emotionally between the lines, thinking logically so we can help them reach their goals. And if we're not setting the right expectations, if we're not educating them, and if we're not truly being advocates for them and telling them the value that we can provide, telling them how we've handled other situations like this, what value are we bringing our clients? They're putting up a lot of money in due diligence, a lot of money in inspections, and if we're not really helping, guiding them by being an educated real estate expert, what value are we giving them? So, calling the listing agent is key. And really it just goes back to showing respect for your colleagues, but also showing respect for your sellers. If you've ever sold a home, and if you've ever sat and waited to hear about the home inspection or the appraisal, you know that this is a time where your nerves can get the best of you. Well, when people are up in arms and in their emotions, you're less likely to get the response you really want to get or need to get from them to make it a win-win. So that's why I think communication is key, especially during a home inspection where there are large things that come up that the seller really probably needs to know about immediately. I always call my listing agents, especially when there's structural stuff, water leaking that could continue to damage stuff, or anything that would be safety related. I tell the listing agents immediately out of respect for the sellers because they need to know. But in return, I'm also telling them so I can help my buyers out. And a lot of people may not think that's how it should work, but telling a listing agent and a seller what came up during the home inspection is going to give them peace of mind, and then also remove that instantaneous fear and emotion of reaction and get them towards finding a resolution. Getting that inspection request over to them within 24 hours and then allowing both parties to get quotes is just a time thing. And just like the emotion of fear and communicating, the more time that gets thrown in, the more people's emotions go awry. So to keep everybody's emotions intact, I would always make it a rule of thumb to try to get your inspections over to the sellers and the listing agents within 24 or 48 hours after the home inspection and have those conversations. 6, 7, I should have numbered these things. Step number 8, as agents, we need to realize too that we are essentially on a team, we're colleagues, and we need to work together to make everything a win-win for our clients. Now, logically, I know not all the time is it going to be a win-win, but as agents, we can do our part to be respectful of one another and be respectful of one another's clients and communicate at a high level to work towards common goals. That's something that I truly 100% believe in. And there are agents that I will receive offers from that I know are going to work like this. And I tell my sellers, regardless of what comes up during this process, we do have another amazing agent on the other side that I have a great relationship that I know that will work through anything. So that's always peace of mind for everybody. Time is everything. As discussed before, submitting that home inspection and repair request, and then giving everybody respectful time to get quotes, and then meeting back again in the end and saying, hey, these are the quotes the seller obtained from these vendors. These are the quotes the buyer obtained from their vendors. What makes this a win-win? And having those conversations with everybody. I mean, I remember times where we had such bad inspection reports that we would bring the buyers and sellers and the agents together and say, what do we need to do to make this a win-win for everybody? If it takes that deep level connection and getting people together to work through it, people are willing to do that. We need to make sure that as agents, we are not getting in the way and that we're working towards a win-win for everybody. So have those conversations, communicate at a super high level, and make sure that you are reaching a win-win, but also a win-win that is able to be obtained. When we start looking at the cost of some structural or just large ticket items that you would like to ask for credit for, you have to be very mindful that lenders have guidelines. And anytime, it's all happened to us, right? I remember I got my buyers like a $20,000 repair credit, only to find out that they could only take $13,000. So literally we left $7,000 on the table. So I called the lender, and the lender walked me through it and told me what can we do to get our clients the full $20,000. But I should have had that conversation with the lender before we even asked for it. So once again, communication and your relationship with your lenders is more important now than ever when we go back to strategizing how do we get our clients the most out of an inspection repair credit. And there's several ways you can do it. You can ask for closing costs and prepaids. You can ask for credits directly to vendors. But all in all, you have to reach the lender's guidelines, and it has to be approved by the lender because everything must be on the closing disclosure. If the repairs are being made by the seller, it's essential that you get copies of the receipts of the repairs being completed. If there's warranties that transfer to you, you need to get copies of those before closing. I would always do a final walkthrough, and I would almost always encourage you to have a re-inspection completed just to ensure that those vendors that were used actually completed what was requested of them. And as agents, that's the only way that really frees you of the liability is if you actually have the inspector come back out and make sure everything was done and completed to the best of everybody's ability and it matched exactly what you asked for on that home inspection report. All in all, if I were to reiterate all of the tips, it's set the expectations, communicate at a high level, be very transparent, know that you're working together to make it a win-win, and do not, as an agent, get in the way of your clients, even if it's maybe not a decision you would make. At the end of the day, it's your job to advise and it's their job to decide. Communicate and have great relationships with the other agents, and communicate and have great relationships with your lenders and other vendors that you use. Having a very credible lender and vendor list is essential. During times of shifts, your relationships with your lenders and vendors will make or break your business. So pour into those people, make sure that they align with how you do business, make sure that they're providing the same level of service that you are, and make sure that you are all working together for your clients on a team. And then lastly is once you have completed the full process, truly make sure everything was done and completed for your client, and ensure your client has peace of mind that this is the best decision for them and that everything is a win-win. So when they go to that closing table, it's a truly exciting day. It's a truly exciting experience. If there are huge repairs, go and get them looked at and re-inspected before the day of closing. The last thing you want to do is delay closing where their rate no longer is locked in, or they've taken off days off work and now they have to shift them. It just creates for a horrible last impression. So do all of that way ahead of time and make sure that closing day is truly a celebration. Thank you so much for this today. Stay tuned for more tips coming soon. I'm Amber with the A-Team at eXp.